Howdy folks, Spencer here, and today I want to take a look at the Infinity update that we're getting on October 13th. That is going to include an update that brings all of the Discovery Far From Home lockbox contents to the Infinity lockbox, and introduces the Farragut Temporal Cruiser to the Infinity lockbox. So let's talk about the Infinity update first, because that is the most significant of this announcement. So the Discovery Far From Home lockbox is going to be added to the Infinity lockbox, and why that's important is because the Crossfield Science Spearhead refit is going to be put into the Infinity lockbox. Now, this is a ship that has been really, it's seen incredibly high demand over the past year and a half, and it's all because of the Starship Trait that the ship has, Universal Designs. When you use universal consoles, this is the Starship Trait that can get you up to 10% crit chance and 50% crit severity. So it's a huge trait for the amount of performance it can get you, and people have been going nuts for it. With that lockbox having not been out now for a very long time, the supply of the Crossfield refit has been extremely limited, and there have been cases where the Crossfield refit would end up being more expensive or as expensive as many of the promotional ships out there. So it was highly demanded, and it finally being added to the Infinity lockbox means that it is going to see much wider availability, and the price should come down on it, and more people should be able to access it. In addition, all of the other contents from that lockbox are also being added to the Infinity lockbox, all of the traits and all that. So if you've been waiting for those to become a bit more accessible, that is finally happening. Now let's take a look at the new ship that is going to be added directly to the Infinity lockbox, and that is the Farragut Temporal Cruiser. So this is going to be added to the Infinity lockbox on October 13th, 2022, to both PC and console at the same time. And this ship is from, I believe, the last episode in the first season of Strange New Worlds. This was the ship that Kirk was flying on that episode. And it's a small little thing. It didn't have the best time in that episode, but it does look neat. The ship model they've done some good work with. Now let's take a look at the stats, because you guys know me, that's really what I care about. So this is a 4-4 cruiser, and I know me saying 4-4 right off the bat's going to dissuade some of you. It's got a 1.3 hull mod, 1.15 shield mod, 4 device slots, and the bridge officer stations are as follows: a lieutenant tactical, an ensign engineer, a commander engineer with temporal operative, lieutenant commander science, and lieutenant commander universal with pilot. So this is not the only ship in the game that has this type of specialization combo. There's at least one other ship out there that has a commander temporal operative with a lieutenant commander pilot, and I'll be making that comparison here in about a minute. For the consoles on this ship, you've got 3 tactical, 4 engineering, and 4 science, a base turn rate of 10, impulse mod of 0.16, and inertia of 45. It's got the full cruiser, all 4 cruiser commands. It's got +5 shield power, +5 engine power, and +10 aux. Now let's take a look at the ship that makes this ship basically dead on arrival, and that is called the Legendary Miranda. Legendary Miranda is a ship that you can buy in the C-Store for $78 during any of the Legendary sales that they run. So if I go and look here for Legendary, or ship bundles, this Legendary TOS Starfleet Captain bundle, it's got a base cost of 12,000 Zen, but it regularly goes on sale at a 35% discount, which makes it 7,800 Zen, which is $78. And remember, as a legendary ship, it's unlocked account wide. Now, if we go and take a look at the Farragut versus the Legendary Miranda, let's see why I think it makes the Farragut dead on arrival. First things first, the Legendary Miranda has a higher hull and shield modifier, 1.375 versus 1.3 on the Farragut, 1.21 versus 1.15 shield mod on the Farragut. It's got better turn, just slightly. It's 10.5 turn rate on the Legendary Miranda versus 10 on the Farragut. impulse mod of 0.17 on the Miranda versus 0.16 on the Farragut, and same inertia rating. The console layout is the exact same, 3 TAC consoles, 4 engineering, 4 science, and the power bonuses that you get from the ship are different, and the legendary Miranda one is more likely to be usable for people, or more beneficial to them, in that it gives plus 10 weapon and aux power. I should also note that the legendary Miranda is a 5-3 multi-mission cruiser, and being multi-mission, it does also have a hangar bay, which the Farragut does not have. It's also a 5-3, whereas the Farragut is a 4-4. Now, for the bridge officer seating on the legendary Miranda, it's a lieutenant commander engineer with temporal operative, a lieutenant commander tactical, lieutenant commander science with pilot, lieutenant universal, and ensign universal. So I've got some comparisons here that I typed up, just comparing some builds. And yeah, I used a lot of abbreviations here. I apologize for any newer players. But the main point is that the bridge officer layout between these things is damn near identical. You can build them out to be very close to each other. I would say that the Farragut has a layout that would probably end up with just slightly higher performance, being you could run you would run pilot team to trigger cold hearted. On the Miranda, you'd have to run that on your ensign science slot, whereas on the Farragut, you could run tractor beam one instead, and then you could drop your distributed targeting one and exchange that for a pilot team one. However, the legendary Miranda is a 5-3 weapon setup, which does mean it has a higher weapons-based performance potential, and it has a hangar bay. And it's a ship that you can get on account-wide unlock, because it's a legendary ship. The Farragut is a lockbox ship, and lockbox ships are not cheap. You are going to be spending, on average, more than this legendary TOS Starfleet Captain bundle cost at base non-sale prices to get one copy of the Farragut, versus just buying that Captain bundle. So, for the ship itself, I can't recommend that you get the Farragut for the ship itself, because everything the Farragut can do, the legendary Miranda can do, and it can do it better. Because that 5-3 weapon setup has a much higher performance potential than a 4-4 setup, and you also get a hangar bay on the legendary Miranda. And we haven't even factored in yet that the legendary Miranda gets, it being a legendary ship, it gets all of the traits and consoles from the lower or the existing versions of the Miranda. So you're getting multiple Starship traits, multiple consoles with the Miranda, whereas with the Farragut, you're just getting what comes with it. And the legendary Miranda also has that one big happy fleet Starship trait, which gives you shield pen for your energy weapons that builds up and becomes more potent the longer you're in combat. So the legendary Miranda just blows the Farragut out of the water. But this is a video about the Farragut, so let's talk about the Farragut now. I already went over the stats. The Admiralty card for it is 56 inch, 41 psi, 29 tac, plus 10 science per attack ship. And the console on this has passives for Starship projectile weapon training and critical severity with projectile weapons. The console can be used on any ship. And the clicky for the console, the antimatter bomb deployment console, is that it will release an antimatter bomb which will reduce flight speed and turn rate of enemies within 5 kilometers before it detonates after 15 seconds. So whatever you shoot this at needs to be alive, and for 15 seconds for you to be able to really benefit from it, unless it's a group of enemies. In that case, you always benefit from that. Upon detonation, it will deal massive kinetic damage to foes within 5 kilometers, and it will create a shockwave that slowly travels out to 20 kilometers, dealing additional heavy kinetic damage to foes as it travels. We need to see the performance numbers on this before I can say it's worth it or not, but the only builds that I could see this being utilized on are going to be Torp builds, or maybe EPG builds. I don't think anyone else would really benefit from it. And until we see performance numbers, we don't know how it actually performs. For all we know, even though they say massive kinetic damage, I think after the last month, it's shown that they don't really know what massive damage is in the game right now. So we don't know what massive kinetic damage means to them. Starship Trait is Damn the Torpedoes. While this trait is slotted, keeping your ship's throttle above 50% will grant additional damage resistance rating against all projectile weapons, and will periodically destroy the nearest mine or targetable torpedo. So while your throttle is at or above 50%, you will get between 100 and 200 resistance rating versus projectile weapons. So at max throttle, that'd be 200. At 50% throttle, 100. And once every 2 seconds, it will destroy the nearest mine or targetable torpedo within 5 kilometers of you. This trait is garbage. I do not see any practical use case for this. Most content in this game, if you want to be efficient at it, you are going to find a stationary place and you're going to sit there. The only people that usually fly around constantly, at like 50% throttle or above in PvE are people that don't know how to fly. And I'm not trying to be a dick about that, but this game, the way the content is designed is that you sit still and you are often stationary in one spot. Constantly moving is bad. And this trait is giving you resistance against projectile weapons, which, would help you in a few queues, but overall, this trait isn't worth the money. I cannot recommend that you go out and get this ship for this trait, not even on like a heavy tank, because especially if you're on like a heavy tank, you're sitting still in the middle of the map, basically, if I go into like HSE, Hive Space Elite, and I go in there with my tank, I'm flying right into the center and I'm like sitting still in between all of the enemies. I can't think of any situation where a good pilot is going to be flying at, at least 50% throttle the entire time to benefit from this. I just don't see it being any good. So it's a bit weird that this is what they went with for a trait on a lockbox ship. The console could potentially, end up being good for some builds. We need to see the performance numbers. And the ship itself, I mean, if you want to do something with the ship, you could easily do like a 4-4 beam overload setup with beam arrays on it. It'd work fine for that. But again, I look at this legendary Miranda. The legendary Miranda can do the exact same bridge officer setup, basically. There's one little difference. The Farragut can get away with you doing the pilot ability on a tack seat rather than a side seat, but it isn't worth it to me. I'm not going to go out and get this ship. If you want to go out and get it, that's up to you. It's your money. But if I was wanting a ship with stats like this that has a commander temporal operative and a lieutenant commander pilot, there's a better ship right in the C store. And being in the C store as a legendary ship, it means every character on my account can benefit from it. But that's going to be it for this video. Let me know what you think. Is there somewhere that you think the trait could actually be used? Because I really can't think of any good spot you would use that trait. So let me know what you think, but that's going to be it for me today. Thank you all for watching. See you guys next time.